No.
Yep.
All right, 6 o'clock, we'll get started and we'll say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we got everybody with John here tonight. So we got a quorum, so we're good there. All right. Anybody got any additions or corrections to the agenda as we sit here?
We do
Besides
have
number-
removal of agenda item 7,
Yep.
which is sheriff's update. Both our deputies are tied up with obligations, so they weren't able to make it.
Okay.
So we'll just postpone that to the next meeting, or
Yeah.
do we just have them to send in their report? And
We'll plan for a next meeting.
Okay.
And if they're available, we'll make it to where they come next meeting.
okay.
They'll have to come next time. We got to meet the new guy.
Yeah.
Lindsay's on the way out, so.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Motion to approve agenda.
Okay. There's a motion with the removal of number 7.
Second.
Chelsea does a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Approved consent agenda. Didn't see anything unusual on there, Jimmy. Anything else we need to?
Yep, I
talk
did a
about?
math error. So the C, where it says 680, 938, 17,
Yep.
I forgot to add the last estimate to it. So it's actually, where did I put it? 2 seconds. It actually is $121,954.59.
100.
Where are you looking at, Jimmy? And
So where it says 680, 938, 17?
yeah.
That's wrong. It should be 121,
Oh.
954, 59.
Okay.
Well, I like the numbers going down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what? It was just from.
Just I forgot to add the last estimate into the amount previously paid.
Okay.
So that's why it works out the way it does.
So we're still at
Yeah.
94% complete
Yep.
for the project.
Yep. Yeah. That
So that
for what
didn't
it's
change.
worth, the number above it should have been 394081713 instead of that 338183833.55.
Okay.
So.
So we are closer to their. We are getting closer to their total cost
Yep.
for the project. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the consent agenda, Jim, or that was the only correction?
That was the only correction I had. Thank you.
I do have one thing to point out. You'll see on the consent agenda, under SharePoint there, the 2 different financials. One was from 11/25,
This was the balance
2019.
sheet.
Yeah. There's one day for 11/25. You're on the 11/25 one. There's a more current one, 11/30. Becky was able to give me the most current information just at the end of the day here, so we threw it up there so you have access to it.
Oh, it's out on SharePoint. It's
Yeah.
not.
It just says balance sheet and income statement 11/30/2019. So that's the most current numbers. So just give me a heads up that it exists there.
So just pull that latest
Yeah.
file down. Okay.
And that just says all the different vendor invoices and everything reflected. That's also in the consent.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
If there's no other questions, guys, next the motion to accept the consent agenda with the correction.
So moved.
Okay, Dave.
Second.
So Chelsea does a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Minutes. Anybody have a chance? Any questions on prior minutes? I didn't see anything.
Everything look good. Motion approved.
Second.
Brian makes the motion, Dave is the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay, go to public comment. Anybody got anything they want to talk about tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move along. 7 is out. So, Brenton, you got the next one here.
Okay, the next item, Brian, if you pull up Pat's, yeah. What you see before you is proposed final plat for Hess First Edition. What this says is break out one individual lot into 5 individual lots. Subdividing out, this does not fall under lot split, we have to do it as the actual plat, even though it's a pretty small scale plat. Location is 64th Avenue and to the west of Drain 27, so where you have the cursor over the
That's Drain
PDF, that's
27
Drain
right here.
27. Did go through Planning Commission. I believe it had a 5-0 vote in favor to approve with contingency that it is approved and no issues with Southeast Cass approval, and that's what we'd be asking for at council's approval of the final plat also is Southeast Cass meets, I believe, next week, and we have it on their agenda, but the contingency would be as long as it's approved by Southeast Cass, it's good to go with Planning Commission and council. There's not a dedication per se on this one to the smaller scale of the subdivision, so we're not requiring any dedication. I've worked that with the park board. However, we did ask the applicant to clean up the property, which they've been working diligently on, in order to, it'll help them be able to sell the lots too. So they've been working with us on that in lieu of any dedication. So, you have any questions?
Lucas, we need to do a public hearing on this one?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna open up for a public hearing on the Hess subdivision final plat. Has anybody got any comments they wanna make on this? Anybody? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Russ, is there anything that concerned you at all, or any, doesn't seem?
No, you'll notice on the south end, I believe, basically, I think his old lot line probably ran to the middle of the road, and now we're getting the right of way down there that we need for 64th Avenue.
Okay. Did you talk with him about that when you guys had your meeting?
It was all part of the. Yes. That was already set up that way.
Well, I assumed as much, but I thought I'd better ask. Okay. You guys got any questions about it?
This is Deer Creek, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, do we need a motion to approve?
I motion we approve the final plat for Hess subdivision.
Okay. Dave makes a
And
motion.
this will be contingent upon
Southeast
approval from
Gas.
Southeast
Southeast
Gas.
Gas.
Approval.
Yep.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Brian does a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
You can close the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
I did. So I gave it 15 seconds, Lucas.
It was 6:08 to 6:08.
I'll be more boisterous next time. All right, we're on to number 9.
Okay. The next item before you is for the Greeley edition. The Greeley edition, I do have Brian Konofsky here that could speak towards this, if you have any questions about it. And I don't know if Brian would like to have a few minutes to talk about it, he can. But what this is a PUD, or planned unit development, and a plat. Any PUDs have to go through the planning process, so that's what we're going through, and that's why we'd be asking for discussion and action from the council tonight. What you have in front of you, though, is also a packet that highlights their proposal, what they're looking at doing within this PUD. Shows proposed site plan, buildings, layout, and answers a lot of your different questions that you may have about what would it look like and what to expect in that area. To the very far east, that area is believe they're looking at possibly putting a pond back there, but it hasn't been determined yet, unless they're looking at the details and engineering tied to that. But
Into this area right here.
yes, to these, yeah, that little shape there. This has gone through Planning Commission. Planning Commission would recommended approval of this. I believe it was also a 5-0 vote in favor. And the one area that they are concerned or looking into, I know is being looked into still, is on the plat. There are some easements located on the upper 2/3 of the property going east-west, and they're looking to see if those easements could be vacated or not, or what's the status of them. It's our understanding there are no utilities located within those easements. If there aren't any utilities in there, it makes it a lot easier to vacate. But I know Jim or Hearsay, you guys are looking into that.
Is this on the north side?
On the north side.
On the north side right here?
Oh, the north third.
The north third. If you
Oh,
go,
so this portion there's easements that will need to be vacated. That's
yeah,
what-
there are some easements. If you pulled up the plat, they would show
Oh,
the
okay.
easements on the plat.
Okay.
But it'd be, if you go where the top building kicks out going east-west,
Yep.
it's the south end of that general area.
Okay.
Is where those
Oh, so
easements
from right about
exist.
here all the way up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Going east-west.
Oh, okay.
So we're looking to see how those could be vacated, but we don't expect
Okay.
issues on it.
Go ahead, Lucas.
For tonight's meeting, you should really only be looking at the preliminary plat because that's all the planning commission has looked at. And really before this proceeds any further, we need that PUD agreement to go along with this so we know what kind of buildings are gonna be on there, so we know what kind of zoning restrictions this plat is going to have. Similar to when we did Terra Gardens, remember how important it was that we had that PUD agreement? Because that's telling us exactly where all the setbacks are gonna be, how large the building is going to be. So really, this is just kind of getting the preliminary plat public hearing done with. But then what we really need is to take a hard look at that PUD agreement, and that's going to start with planning commission and then go back to your board. So right now, the main thing is basically let's just get that public hearing for the preliminary plat out of the way, and then we can focus on the details of bringing this back to the city council after planning commission has had a chance to go through the PUD agreement and see how everything falls into place on this plat.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody got any comments that they want to make about the PUD? Anybody? Okay, we'll close. I'll close the public hearing. Lucas, you got that? Just check.
I was listening that time.
All right. So you guys, just on a comment though, you guys changed this a little bit from the last time you brought this in front of us. So why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
We changed it a little bit just because the old PUD ordinance that was in here was rather large. It was 5 acres, and we were trying to put some existing buildings in and skipping over a street. And when Matt was redoing that, is when we kind of decided it's probably best just to start this process over, clean it up. It also gave us time to refine the site and our plans a little bit. So,
Honestly, I think this looks like the layout a little bit.
I think it looks even better.
Yeah, that's what
because of the bump outs you have on the front. Those first stories kind of soften a little bit. Plus, with that building being set that far back from the street, that helps too. And you have a closet in the front that can be used for other things.
True.
It's positive.
Anybody, do you have any other questions? I was just going to point out that it's a little different layout than the last one that we got in front of us.
So the plat we're looking at, these different boundary lines, the lot lines, was there, what was the rhyme or reason, I guess, for the just existing?
the particular shape,
Yeah, all those lots are.
or the
existing.
lots 1, lot
Yeah.
2, and lot 3. Just that we'll start with lot 1 will be our first thing, and that's more of a finance thing. Once you,
Okay.
you know,
I see what
so
you
when
mean.
you start dealing with the banks and things like that, that's why we split that down the middle, basically. So we'll have lot 1, and then lot 2 will go at the same time, which is the public plaza area. if all that goes through, then whenever that first building gets up and done and really leased out, especially the commercial, then we'll move on to the south lot, which is lot 3.
I see it now. You got some existing dash lines.
Yeah, those are the old ones that we were, that's part of the reason they were all kind of,
Yeah.
this just cleans everything up, basically.
And then the easement vacation for the county road. I don't know, did we talk about that or what was?
And that's beyond me, that would be Jim.
So our office is looking into the various easements that are that they desire to vacate to see who actually was the grantor, and if they were just dedicated on the previous plat, then when this is replatted, you can vacate them as long as there's no utilities that have been installed. So engineering is going to look to see if anything has been installed. Legal is going to look at how these easements were originally dedicated, whether it's through the plat or through a separate document, and then we'll vacate the ones that we can.
Okay, sounds good.
One thing I do want to note too is the lot where the plaza would be. Now the intention would be that there would be land dedication as part of that. However, that lot is bigger than the overall land dedication, so there would likely be cost to the city to purchase the remaining amount of that. So that's something to keep in mind, is that we have some costs. Because if you're looking at just a straight up land dedication, we'd be at quite a bit smaller chunk of property, which would not have as much effect on that plaza concept. So
Roughly what are we looking at?
I can't remember off the top of my head where we were at. Do you have?
I can't tell you either.
I could get it back to you at the next
No,
meeting. So.
just if we're talking
Yeah,
big
I
chunks.
want to say it was exact dollar amount hasn't been negotiated
No,
out.
but I mean, land wise, I was just thinking.
Yeah, land wise, you're talking, I think that was 15,000 square feet. I want to say dedication was around 7,000 to 8,000, so about half of that would be purchase versus the other half is dedication. I believe that was roughly the ballpark. So,
That's fine.
yeah.
Just
But in the PUD agreement, we'd work out the details on that.
Yep. I'm just trying to get in my head what we're looking at here.
Yep.
Numbers.
So the plaza's rounded, this lot is square, where the overlap, I mean, how does, what's that?
Oh, the road is that curving linear road, but the lot itself is still square.
It's all containing.
Yeah. I mean, do something like cross parking easements or things like that, so that when you guys decide to use the plaza, then we can shut that area down, and that way you could have, depending on what happens in the plaza, as far as whether it be some kind of hardscape or grass, then you could always have the hardscape of the parking that's there, in case of weather, rain, things like that, or just bringing in food trucks or vendors or things like that.
Okay, anybody got any other questions, comments? So, if not, then we'll-
Oh, I did, sorry, no, I was thinking what my question was. Lost it, right back. The surrounding neighbors, did they have to be notified during your review, Russ, for planning and zoning?
They,
Is that the
Yes.
time they were?
yes.
Okay.
The answer
And for
is
this
yes.
meeting.
And for this?
And they've actually already, this is a new one, but for the old one, they were.
Yeah, so they would just have to be re-notified,
Yes.
what you're saying, that the preliminary plat has changed.
Our office handles that when we do the publication in the newspaper, then we send out the notification to landowners or property owners that are
So
nearby.
was it done for this one, for
Yeah,
this new one?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The way your ordinance is drafted now, we revised it, I don't know how many years ago, but it's only property owners within 150 feet, so it's probably not that many, but.
And
that's what we do.
this time we didn't get any questions or anything, but last time we did. And I think we put them at ease.
Okay.
The main concern last time was whether people in the upper floors were gonna be looking into people's backyards across the road.
Yeah. Okay.
Which was a valid concern.
Yeah, but it's a law.
I know, I'm just saying, it's.
Yeah.
And since we talked with them, we did move it back farther.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, it's.
Yep.
it's an issue now, it's just then there was concern, so.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else got anything there? Okay, then I'm gonna accept a motion to.
Make a motion to approve the preliminary plat
Okay, Brian makes a
modification, I guess.
Second.
motion. Chelsea does a second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, Brenton, you got the next one here.
Okay. Next one is Horace High School, and labeled it design review. It's mainly for the school district and the architect to give you an overview of what was presented to the planning commission, give you a chance to see the new Horace High School, what it looks like, what their site plan is, what they're coming about. This is no action is going to be taken by the council. The planning commission did approve the design of the high school as proposed, so what you'll see, that has gone through the design review component, so there are no issues with that. But Mark Lemire and Lee DeBrenz are here to talk about what they plan on doing and kind of talk the details and show you some of the logistics of this concept here. It's exciting to see, and we'll be seeing quite a bit come from them here within the next couple months.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mark Lemire with West Fargo Schools. I've been before you in my former position with the school district, which was the business manager. Today I am officially starting, yes, as a part-time employee for our construction coordination, at least for these two big projects that we've got going on down here in Horace. Lee Dobrins with JLG is with me as well. We wanted to take this opportunity tonight to share with you the results of the work that came about from the 2018 bond referendum that included a new high school. We'll share with you tonight kind of our proposed parking layouts and connections with the road networks, the overall site, including layout for athletic amenities, the building itself, and some of the components that will be used, the materials and color selection that will sort of highlight this addition to the community. So I'm just going to let kind of Lee walk through it, and then maybe we'll take a few minutes to answer questions and talk about a couple of items that will ultimately require some future coordination between the school parks and the city.
Thank you, Mark. As mentioned, I'm Lee Dobrins with JLG Architects. We are the architecture firm for the high school project. It's my understanding we've got the overall PDF file that we shared with planning as well. And as City Administrator Holper had mentioned, we presented this to the Planning and Zoning Commission last week and was approved. But we're excited to be here and tell you a bit about the project. We think this is a really exciting time for Horace. All the things that are going on here that you talked about before this point, it's really exciting to be part of it. So, as you're probably familiar with the site, I'm going to give you a quick overview of where things are at, just some logistics. And this is 76 on the north side of the overall school site. The Cheyenne Road or Cheyenne Street, or Horace Road or Cheyenne Street is off to the west. And here's the Lutheran Church, just for some frame of reference. The middle school here is on the northeast side. Met a few of you last year when we were here with YHR. We collaborated with YHR last year as they were developing the middle school plans to help master plan the overall site, knowing that the high school would be coming after it. So at that point, it was determined that we would have a middle school in the northeast part of the overall site. We wanted to create a division of that one large property so that there's some separation between the two buildings, largely because of just traffic patterns, also just the timing of the development and the infrastructure that was going to be coming around this site. It made sense to have the middle school in that northeast portion. So at that point, it was decided that we would divide that site with what started as an internal drive, which then became actually a city street. So that is under construction. This is 79th. That is currently under construction. 63rd is also under construction, as is Lakeview Drive that will border this on the left or the west and connect out to the Horace Road, Cheyenne Street. The high school is here at the south or southwest portion of the site, oriented a little bit with the main entrance towards the west, northwest. And then 81st is currently what's called 81st, is the street that would be developed next year. as the high school is also being developed. So those are the building locations. From a site management standpoint, the football soccer stadium is located right here in track. So the southeast portion is essentially the stadium, practice fields, track and field events, and then there's a retention pond here, which is currently under development or construction right now, which is for this site, but also has some regional retention for from what we understand, the lot to the west, as well as potentially some things to the east. I don't recall if that has anything going into it from the east. And then the northwest corner of this quadrant, or northwest quadrant of the site, essentially is a softball and baseball stadium. There are also some practice fields there, and then also tennis courts. And so you're seeing the full build out of all of those amenities. I want to point out here, if you're able to see on the PDF, probably can't see it on this from the distance here on this drawing, but we're indicating some dashed lines indicating how that high school building will grow over time. So the initial design of this was to design it for 1,000 student capacity with the ability for it to grow up to 1,500 to 1,600 students, which would ultimately match it to the other buildings in the district, the other high school buildings. And so currently what you're seeing right now has room for a couple of more classroom pods, as well as expansion of the gymnasium, future wrestling room, a future multi-purpose room, and then also some additional music space that would be added on to the southwest corner. As we laid this site out, a key piece of our key goal of the design was to try to really simplify your orientation of the front entrance and really simplify how parking and access to the high school is made. And so rather than having parking that surrounds all four sides of the building, we try to keep everything really focused to the west or the north. And so this parking lot here would serve the stadium. There could be overflow into this parking area. This would essentially be your student parking. And then now to the southwest, we have a bus lane and some staff parking. The idea is that as people are coming from the west or the north, the main entrance of the building is really, really prominent. It's really clear for everybody where they have to go. That also has some benefits from a security and a safety standpoint. And then also the classroom pods that are located here, then also looking out to kind of green fields and not to a parking lot. Receiving and deliveries and so forth will be coming from the south side of the site. We've had some discussions with Jim and some of the folks that are developing, Lowry I think it was, that were developing housing to the south. So there's some work we're doing to try to connect to that housing development as best as we can in terms of where pedestrian ways would be. This connection here, the southwest corner of the site, which is essentially going from 81st up to Lakeview, this is really a preliminary layout that has not been finalized or determined yet, but that did come out of some of the discussions that we've had with NBN Engineering, which is the civil engineer for the high school project, and then also the folks Interstate and Lowry. Any questions on the site layout?
Lee, since you brought that up, that's what I wanted to talk to the commission about. As
Sure.
So in the original agreement that we had associated with the plat, it included the potential to dedicate this parcel of property to the park board. And we've received notification now from their chairman that they're actually looking to do cash in lieu versus a land dedication. And so when that happened, it opened up this parcel for this potential connector from Lakeview down into the 81st and the development to the south. That changes a little bit what we had envisioned in that original agreement. And so we got a couple of options that we're going to need to figure out if this really is going to happen. First, not the least of which will need to be the acquisition of this property from the railroad. We're still trying to actually work on our acquisition of the property here from where we need to cross over up to the water tower. It's kind of seemed to have stalled out for us. We're still working at it, not making a lot of progress. But so the acquisition here, it also then would require us to come to some agreement between the three parties about what happens then with this portion of the site. If this becomes a portion of our dedication to the park district in terms of cash in lieu, then our expectation would be that we would sell it to the city. My presumption is that we would try to come to some sort of an one way or another, we have to get this figured out. Make sure that in the end, park board comes out whole and the school district comes out whole in this transaction. And then it also impacts the property to the west of the road. So we need to involve the church as well in this conversation. So that is all, as we said, still preliminary, but at some point we are going to need to come to terms of what that means for the development of this road and what we're going to be doing with the park board on that parcel.
There was a good question asked in the planning meeting, the rest of you had that question about what is the backup if for some reason that didn't happen in terms of acquisition of that property. And what we've been planning on leading up to this point was that there could be actually an internal drive that would extend alongside the west edge of the property and then connect into 81st. So if for some reason this weren't able to come about, that would end up being the fallback. But I think there's some real benefits if this could continue this way, or at least something similar to that for infants.
One other piece that needs to ultimately be figured out is the naming of this street. It was platted as 81st. However, with the development to the east, 81st is actually farther south of this location.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, on the west side, 81st is farther north. So whether we wanted to have 3 steps or if this gets renamed, that would also require some sort of formal action since it was platted as 81st before. But we're certainly open to any discussion or recommendations on a naming convention. That's going to be something other than 81st. That 81st is actually going to connect through to the south of this particular company.
This next image is just an expanded or blown up version of the actual south side of that site. And maybe you can tell a little bit more about kind of where future parking goes. So again, this is phase 1 parking. This whole area to the north is where future parking can expand. There's a water tower. Again, assuming acquisition of that railroad property, there would be additional parking that could be acquired to the west. And then now with the potential for using that previously dedicated parkland, well, not officially dedicated, but planned to be dedicated, could be, again, additional parking that might happen along this connection from Lakeview to 81st. Just a little more detail on that one. Next image is the floor plan. So this is a, as I mentioned, it's going to be opening up for roughly 1,000 student capacity. It's a 2-story building. Mixture of building types in terms of steel frame, also masonry load bearing, and then also some precast concrete construction for portions of the building. Orientation to that site plan, west is up. Here's your main entrance. Again, trying to get everybody really coming to this west side of the building for entering the building and exiting the building. There is a separate entrance here for athletic events, after school athletic events. This is the athletic wing, if you will, or quadrant of the building. The green area is the performing arts, the theater and music area. For folks that would be coming after hours for a show, they would use the main entrance and essentially have the commons as its lobby or its pre-function space. And then as you go to the left here or to the south, this is the serving area and kitchen, and the back of house and receiving areas. And then in the core of this is the commons, essentially, that really connects that building west to east. There are going to be exits and entrances that you go out to an outdoor space, but that's really intended for the students, whether it's for lunch or for any kind of teaching activities. And then ultimately on the furthest east side, you have the main corridor that connects all of the classroom pods. So again, these are each a 2-story classroom pod. They are meant to be focused around a particular career or post-secondary education kind of focus, but there is also core classes mixed in them. And then this is showing a 3rd pod, which is actually going to be a bit alternate to this first phase. And then ultimately there will be a 4th pod that would be furthest to the north. The gymnasium will start with 2 courts. This will be the main varsity court. Bleachers will pull across here. Ultimately, there would be a 3rd court where this wall actually expands out further to the north. And then the final piece would be an auxiliary gym that would also give you another full court and 2 cross courts. So very similar setups to what West Fargo High and Cheyenne have now in terms of capacity, ultimately. The layout of the space will be similar to, if you're familiar with Legacy in Bismarck, where there'll actually be an elevated track when the future courts are added. There'll be the ability to have an elevated track, watch games from above, and actually top load down to your bleachers. And of course, it provides another PE station for PE and for education. The second level, jump up to that. And you're seeing a two-story volume of the commons. Coming from the second level main hallway, academic hallway, to a grand learning stair that flows down to the commons. Here's the media center, kind of right in the heart of the building on the second level. You're seeing the upper portion of the theater, upper portion of the gym, and then the second level of these two-story pods. All the science classrooms and labs are arranged along this main hallway. And then here you're seeing the fine arts rooms, the arts and media rooms. Okay. So next, we'll put the first floor back up again, just give you some orientation. The next view that you see to the right, that's an overall view looking at that west side. Again, here's that main entrance. Here's where that is in this image. Just to point out a few of the materials and volumes here, this kind of lighter box here, and that box there, that's the gym and the theater. Those are made out of a precast concrete panel, and those are load bearing. Have steel joists that span those, clear span those. The dark material that you see here, and there's the base kind of running along here and over here, that's a dark brick. The lighter piece right here, this is the administration area, that's also a brick. Color that is intended to be the same as the precast. It's kind of not coming through on that rendering the way it shows it. And then this kind of warmer tone, that's actually a corrugated metal panel. So it's a horizontal corrugation, has a real warm tone to it. One of the goals the district had for us when we started was we didn't necessarily need to match the middle school design, but we wanted to have a building that looked good with it, so that those two things would look well on the same site. And so while we're not literally matching the same materials other than this brick, the color tones, the warmth of that kind of accent panel ties into some things that are happening in middle school as well. The main entrance has this kind of large glass box, if you will, with a deep overhang and some columns there. Again, trying to really reinforce that sense of entry, kind of give it an architectural quality, almost a civic public facility type quality. This next image is a blow up of that area. So you can see a little bit better now the corrugation in that panel. The underside or soffit of that overhang, it's a metal panel, but it has kind of a faux wood look to it. Again, something that's a material that's being used for the middle school as well as some accents. Then on the west side, or excuse me, east side of the building, here you're seeing the east side looking out towards these are looking out towards the fields. These are the classroom pods, the two of those. Third one kind of plugs in here and just continues down the way. What you're seeing here is the glass at the end of the learning commons. So if I point that on the floor plans, the classrooms in each pod are arranged around one central teaching space. And so these are destinations. They're not really hallways. They're ways to get to the classrooms, but they're also spaces that are intended to be used for teaching. And so those areas are what you're seeing right here and right there. Any questions on materials or the design in general?
It's awesome.
No, I think it looks
Very nice.
I guess I have a couple questions. What do you expect the class size to be when it opens?
Per class or what?
This building is going to open very small. We're expecting about, well, it'll grow obviously by the time we get the building open, but we're at about 150 kids per grade that will feed into this building right now from the three neighborhoods that it will serve, which is the Wilds, Deer Creek, and then Forest. As Forest fills in, obviously those numbers will start pumping up. But it is going to start small. We'll only have 2 grade levels in this building year one. That would be 9th graders and 10th graders. So they'll see just students that are right now this year at Deer Creek as sixth graders. They're the kind of the first group that's been separated away from middle and high school. But next year when we have Heritage Middle School open, we'll have ninth grade in that facility. Those students will be the sophomores, so they'll be the lead grade that will be moving their way through and ultimately being the first graduating class from Horace High School. So it's going to be very, very small for those first couple of years. Even when we have 9 through 12 in the building, will likely be 750 students total. So it'll be a couple of years before we reach the capacity of this school.
And so the additions to this, is that a separate bond?
Yes. It'll likely be 5 years out.
And from a schedule standpoint, the project itself, first phase will be going out for bid in the middle of January, and then construction will start as soon as weather's going to allow this spring, and then this will be occupied. It'll open up in August of 2021, so open for fall of 2021.
The civil engineering firm that's assisting Lee with the Horace High School project is also currently working on this athletic and site amenities for the remainder of the site. That project will bid 2 weeks after the high school. That includes softball field, baseball field, artificial turf that will go in, and football stadium with grandstands. So all those amenities, tennis courts, will be installed and available essentially when the building opens.
They were also the civil engineer for the middle school project, so there's a nice continuity with all three of those. I mentioned the planning and zoning meeting that we're working with Land Elements on the landscaping for this high school project. We've shared with them the plan that YHR did for the middle school. And so again, while we might not match literally all of those plantings, we're trying to find some way to have some tie-in and a little bit of continuity with those.
I was going to ask, what's the approximate staffing? How many staff people are going to be working in this building?
We haven't actually laid out that staffing plan yet. Again, it's going to start relatively small. Although, same thing happened to us at Cheyenne. The building will open very sort of inefficiently because you're going to have students that want to take French 4, for example,
Right.
and they're not getting 25 of them.
Right.
And so we're going to have to staff for those smaller class sizes, or figure out ways to, if you interact with television or something, deliver them here. But yeah, it's going to be, we're going to have lots and lots of parking for those first couple.
Right.
It's going to look like the building isn't even open. I think we don't have a lot of drivers, and we don't have a lot of staff.
So the boundaries and so forth for, where kids will be going, those will probably publish next year?
They actually were available when we did the referendum.
Okay.
We've established, obviously things can change over time, but we're anticipating that they're going to be fixed at 40th Avenue west of the river and 52nd Avenue east of the river, and then basically south to the boundaries of the school district.
I really like the way that you have the lighter concrete at the top and how that kind of breaks up the building. I like all the exteriors, how they flow. The entry, I guess my only comment would just be it's very clean and simple. So, it'd be nice to see a little bit more of a wow, like this curtain wall having something a little decorative, or the columns maybe being more decorative.
Sure.
But I think it's nice.
We'll put down the close up a little bit more. Like a little difficult to see, but we've got a brick wrap around the column, and then you get up to the same height as the adjacent building areas, and then transition to the steel. There'll be some accent lighting. We're not exactly got all that worked out yet, but there'll be some accent lighting to uplight that wood tone on the underside, and then get some ambient light coming from through the glass to the curtain wall at the bottom.
Is that Horace sign or name there agreed
That's
upon
a
that's going to show, or is that still just a placement?
That's a placeholder. The idea is to have some signage there.
So that's
We
really
haven't-
nice.
Haven't determined if it would be
It was lit.
a logo and the name, or you know, exactly what that is.
Okay.
The name of the high school.
Right, it's the name of
Yeah,
it, we know,
yeah,
but
correct. Yeah.
I think that's nice. So is this layout any different in relation to Cheyenne? Because you show kind of each of those pods having some different specific.
It is different
tendencies.
in the manner that each of these pods really are kind of destinations. Instead, now certainly there's classroom wings, if you will, over at
Okay.
Cheyenne, and you can kind of go down an academic corridor.
Right.
I think there, though, it's really more of kind of making a loop through an area, where here this really is a point where you have an entry point, a defined kind of end destination, and then you go back into the main circulation point. So there are some benefits from that from a safety and security standpoint, where you create kind of layers of security at these entry points to the pods. But I would say that's largely more driven about the idea of how these pods and how the curriculum is going to be delivered.
So that's the difference right there, kind of curriculum driven versus, I know at Cheyenne, because both my kids have gone there, they're more grade driven, right? It's certain areas of the school are more driven to certain
More
grades.
department driven.
Yeah, West Fargo High School is substantially centered around departments. What this building is attempting to do is sort of distribute some of that, those departments just in and amongst the other academic areas. So, for example, I always use language arts. So, you know, every student that needs to take a 12th grade language arts doesn't need to take the same course. The way this is sort of built on an academies model, and so if you happen to be in the academy that's business and communications, for example, maybe your English looks a little different than it does if you're in
The engineering,
services.
manufacturing.
And so where each of the it would be more similar, I suppose, to what we're doing at the middle schools, where we're actually trying to get the disciplines to work together versus being siloed. And so this is driving a lot of that. It's pushing the ELA and math and social studies into those houses so that they're not so departmentalized. They're actually working with a group of students and may see those same students year after year.
Oh.
Instead of, I only teach freshman English, and I only teach senior English.
Okay.
Now, I teach English in the business communications academy, and so I may have multiple courses that are dealing with, kids over the course of their career, which is kind of English. So it's similar to what Alexandria, Minnesota has in their high school. It is a different concept. It's being considered to be deployed in the other high schools as well, although they certainly won't have infrastructure built in the same way to facilitate it.
And the district is already, they already have in their curriculum ways to try to lead kids to a path, right? To try to help them find their path. This is just a way where the building itself is acting a little more as a tool, an organizing tool to help them do some of those things that the district is already doing.
We are, one of the hurdles that we have yet to overcome, we met with Jim last week, and that's a temporary construction road. Right now, our temporary construction road that's serving the middle school is going to need to come out so that they can finish some of the work on the north end of this site. So we need to figure out a way to actually get construction traffic to our building, and it's going to start before Lakeview and 79th and 63rd are complete. So one way or another, we're going to need to be passing that traffic onto that site and not impact the completion of those three main roadways that are going in right now around that site. So we're going to continue working on that and come up with a solution.
So that temporary road cannot be there for the next building season? Is that what you're getting at here?
There's too many conflicts with 79th construction and the Lakeview construction. Plus, there's fields on the north side of 79th, east of Lakeview, that are to be, that's in the package that you talked about, Mark, being bid 2 weeks after the high school. So they've got an interest in getting their stuff done. The city's got an interest in getting your stuff done and getting to their other interest.
The temporary road that runs here, we actually have permission to be in this portion of the site through December of 2020.
Okay.
But as this road crosses over, it's basically crossing over where these two athletic fields and the tennis courts will go. And so this portion is going to have to come out.
I
So
gotcha. I just-
we'll be able to continue here, but then at some point, we're going to have to cross over.
Do a little
Over
loop
Lakeview.
around the water tower.
And miss a water tower in the making.
So we'll kind of work through that with Jim
Yeah.
and
Okay.
come up with a way to make sure that the roads can continue and we can.
Well, my concern was we'd have to tear up the whole temporary road there, and I was wondering, but if we don't have to do that, I think
No.
that could be worked out then.
There is some importance, or quite a bit of importance to the school to get that railroad land purchased. So
Right.
that it's the straightest, quickest
Right.
way into that site.
So
So
getting back to that, so have you guys talked to Burlington Northern, and that's just
We've
kind
been
of,
working with the real estate agent that was suggested to us.
Okay.
And we got a proposal like within 2 weeks of talking with her about 6 months ago. And since then, we can't even get return phone call. We've gotten, I think, 2 emails in 6 months from her. So
Okay.
we're gonna start moving it a little bit more aggressive, because when we first started, we weren't worried about timeline really. We thought we had time, but now we're concerned we're out of time.
well, I would think that we should probably talk about that too, and see if we can get that whole stretch taken care of, even where we're at too, you know? Is
Yeah.
that something we're obviously have an interest in too? Maybe if we combine resources, we can.
We have been working with the
Right.
school district on that, and then also with the developer to the south, because the developer to the south is looking at
Yeah.
buying the remaining portion down to Wall and 17. Like Mark mentioned before, we're trying to consolidate to where we're not bombarding the railroad with multiple parties. So
That's what I'm
the
thinking.
school is kind of taking the lead going north from where the south boundaries are north. The school is taking the lead on that, and south has been the developer. So we don't,
We'll talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit more, I guess, and we can push that a little bit more.
you know,
at a minimum, we're gonna try to get a crossing at that main access. at
Yeah.
the high
Right.
school. If nothing else, get the ability to cross there right away with a street.
But the ultimate goal here is to just remove that from any more problematic issues, because that's been a pain since this all started.
Yes.
It needs to be taken care of, so we'll get on it. Okay?
So in the end, our hope is that Lakeview, at least the very this east-west portion, is completed in June on their original timeline, so that then we can just cross over the railroad property and pretty much be right to our site. But we'll still need something on a temporary basis for those first couple of months, presuming that we're not, I don't know, rowing our way to the site.
Yeah, put down bridge planking for you to get there, right? Yeah, okay, so we work with Jim on that. Okay.
Building budget from the layout that you have right now, is this pretty much staying within the budget that we had allocated for this, or is there changes from?
The budget's
The plan budget?
39.45 million, and that's what we're working towards, the first phase, correct?
Okay, so that was the budget, and it really hasn't changed.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else got any other questions?
I guess to add on that, how did you guys come in against the middle school? You were lower than
Yes,
projections.
substantially lower.
So is your hope that
Oh, yeah.
it's similar, or any feelings from any of the contractors yet? I'm assuming this is a hot and heavy item since it's right
Yeah, I
in
mean,
town
everything
here.
we've heard out in the market is that there are contractors looking for work. And West Fargo School District has a great record of really attracting strong local contractors that are looking for work here in this area. And so we're hopeful for that, but we're also trying to be very mindful of the big picture. And so there are quite a few alternates that are built into this phase right now to make sure our base bid is on target, knowing that if things come in well, we have things that we can add back in. They've been designed and then can be constructed, but we have to have some safety valves, if you will, to make sure we stay on budget. So.
Just to give you an example, the budget for this building presumes a $200 per square foot average cost. Obviously, some areas are more expensive than some areas. At the the middle school, our number after we opened bids was at $145. So this building will have some higher cost academic areas than a middle school does, and there are other things that are potentially driving costs here, but
Sure.
we're anticipating that we're going to be able to hit that target.
And then the athletic piece, that's again, separate project, separate, but that was all part of the, that's
that-
also tracking with what the referendum dollars were.
Is that package for the whole site? Then is that a one bid for all the athletics related to both high school and middle school? Kind of
There
one
are-
package?
Projects, yeah.
These two fields and these fields are a part of the middle school
Okay.
project. This was actually supposed to be seeded this fall, and it didn't happen.
Sure.
So we're gonna be behind. This building is gonna probably look like, I don't know if any of you have been to the Deer Creek Elementary School, but it's basically just black dirt around the whole perimeter. Something very similar probably is gonna happen here, because we didn't get any chance to do any seeding.
Okay.
So it's not ideal, but it's what the weather conditions. But the rest of the site, this second softball field is the future, but the rest of these athletic amenities will be installed with the project.
High school. Or bid after high school.
Okay, anything else? Comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Bruce, you had a question?
You're gonna have SROs at both schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Day one, I don't know if they end up with a shared position just because of their size, but our standard is to have middle schools and high schools covered with full resource officers. This will be a little bit different, just dealing with Canada jurisdiction.
We're an easy jurisdiction to deal with. Come on. No, thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming down and giving the demo. Looks good. All right, we'll move along. Brent, you got number 11.
Okay, the next item for you is a special event liquor license request. This is for basically to be able to sell wine and sell it by glass and by bottle. This vendor was at our farmers market, had very good success, and he wants to be back. So he requested to be present for the holiday event that we'd be having going on. I believe it was on the 14th. So this is a request for that liquor license for special events. He would be subject to the $50 fee for that permit.
Seemed like it went over fairly well last time around about senior year.
He sold, I believe he sold a lot more wine than he expected to, and that he was very excited about coming back.
Yep.
Great. Motion approved.
Second.
Or you, sorry, do you have a question?
So we were hoping to get a beer vendor, and we're still kind of hoping to, so we kind of wanted to talk about if we were to get one. You know, we don't have another council meeting, or
Before the 14th, no.
Beer is different, so that has to be someone that has a license to sell in the city. Wine is separate under North Dakota law. So before you do that, let's discuss it
okay,
further.
so we can still squeeze it in. We still have time. Like,
To
if
do
we,
beer.
well, like,
Wine.
would we have to have a special council
Beer.
meeting for if we were to get beer? Or?
What I'm saying, I don't think North Dakota law allows you to have beer unless it's someone that is licensed in the city. So like Big Herbs to actually be the one that's. If you're talking about
'Cause
distributing,
they would have to
or
have
what
a
do you?
special license.
You have to have
through the
a liquor
state.
license.
Well, city would actually need a city
Just
liquor
thinking like a
license to serve
microbrewery
beer.
or something coming in and selling. their
Yeah.
beers.
Like
They-
not to actually consume it, just to buy
No,
it.
it'd be to consume.
To consume.
That's what
Yeah,
that's
so-
where the church
yeah.
comes in, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Okay.
So I'll look at it further. But when is your event this weekend?
This one would be the weekend after next, so 14th. So there's not a council meeting in between. So,
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think you can.
Like I say, just take a quick
Yeah,
look,
'cause-
because otherwise we
Yeah.
won't pursue it anymore.
They said something about, purchasing it through the distributor. So I don't know if there was, they were supposed to call today and I didn't hear from them. So-
If the individual, if the brewery is interested, then we would present that recording and see if you want to do a special meeting or something, if you want to. Yeah, from my understanding.
Like selling bottles is one thing, but then actually consuming it is
Yeah.
another.
Well, we
Well,
are,
and that's
the
what- that's
wine
what
is
this
gonna
is.
be consumed.
The
but
wine is,
it's
there's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, all right.
Okay.
Hey, we can talk about it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
clarify it.
Okay.
Okay, so Brian made a motion, Dave did a second. Anything else? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, carries, so, yeah, motion carries. All right, so we'll move on here to the budget amendment.
Okay, the next one here is 2019 budget amendment. I will give you the short version. I have attached the spreadsheets for all of them if you want to see the weeds. Basically, what we look at budget amendments, a couple of things. One is to get our costs to actually show reflective of more accurate of what we've had for revenues or expenditures, at least bottom line. We've had for general fund revenues has significantly exceeded what we had budgeted in different areas. So we want to make sure that's reflected properly, so we know where those dollars to come from. Examples of that include state aid. We budgeted 160,000 and pulled in 233 roughly. Also, which is our biggest difference, is building permits. Building permits, as you know, we've been about double what we were last year with building permits. In addition, we have the middle school. Total revenue is going to be in the ballpark of 270,000. Actually, I believe it's about 275. So we're reflecting that. In addition, we had interest incomes. We've been handling city funds a lot better in making sure that our funds are not sitting in non-interest bearing. They're all in interest bearing whenever possible. So our interest has been significantly higher also. So that would be reflected within general fund within this amendment for revenues. Expenditures, we've had to outsource building inspections. Example would be the middle school. Those inspections are outsourced to more engineering. So there's an increase in cost for inspections. Also, with our building inspector being out on leave, we have created a second building inspector position now, but there was about a 3-month period roughly where we had our backup inspector, which was it's been more engineering, covering that. So we have some increases in our expenditures for the general fund there. Also, which I'll talk about briefly in a little bit here, but transfers to other funds. One is a $10,000 transfer to the Vector Fund. What that is doing is we originally handled costs in the general fund. It's just moving that money into the Vector Fund, so it's easier to track true costs for those activities. So that would be due to our contract with Cass County Vector Control, and then also mosquito spraying, like chemicals, things like that.
And some of that money's already been recovered, right? Because we've taken in money from utilities.
10 is what we need.
Right.
So 10 is the difference of what we need. And then the other one, solid waste. Our solid waste, we didn't incorporate the rate increase for solid waste as quickly as we need to, and there was some shortfall tied to the solid waste, so this is recovering the solid waste. I labeled this as a transfer/loan, so it could be a debt. If the council wants to have that as get paid back from that fund, at a later date, we could do that. Or you could choose to waive that and just have it be a transfer straight over. But that would be to get the solid waste fund adequate. Now, we'd only transfer the amount needed to basically zero out the fund, or keep it in the black, or keep it out of the red. That's the intention. So if we only need, so solid waste, say 50,000, we'd only transfer that 50,000. We keep the rest in general fund, keep the most flexibility there as possible. Sewer and water, if you look at the sewer and water funds, they have the same dynamics going on. The rate increases that have been done at the council earlier this year, they've helped, but they have not covered our shortfalls of water and sewer. What has helped the water and sewer fund tremendously are two things. One, we've kept our operating and capital maintenance type costs to an absolute minimum. We did not do gate valve replacements, even though we need to. We did not do those this year. Sewer line improvements, we did not tackle them as much as we would like to, because we needed to know how these rates would actually impact us. We need to have some of this data to really see where we're sitting. In addition, our building permits, all those new builds helped us tremendously on our water and sewer funds. That's what kept us in the black. It does give us the ability to create some reserve funds. What we would have are two different reserve funds for each of the utilities, so water and sewer, which each have two different reserves. One would be a water reserve or sewer reserve. The other one would be a reserve fund tied to debt services. The debt services fund is one of those you do not touch. The reason why is because we have to have so much money available within to cover debt service obligations. So if we have an SRF loan, we have to have so much money available set aside for loan obligations. That is really important for water and keep or gain us in good standing with this North Dakota Public Finance Authority. We need to build that fund up a little bit. I believe we need to be around 45,000. Through this budget amendment, it will get us to be about 30,000, which is significant progress from where we are before, of being zero. So that's what we're trying to do, is baby steps.
Right.
In future years, we'd probably reflect some towards these funds, but not a lot. And then during a budget amendment, as we know how we're sitting, we could dump money into those funds. So if we're in the black next year, then we would come back to a budget amendment and reflect that transfer into those funds to build those funds up some more. But we need to get a starting place. I mentioned Vector. Vector, we're basically consolidating the costs to be all under that fund, not be general fund and Vector fund. So that's why there's that 10,000 transfer. Forestry, there are no issues with forestry. No changes need to be made. Solid waste is to bring that up. To cover shortfalls, we would need a rate increase for solid waste, just as we would with Vector, sewer, and water. Those are the four funds that will need to see some rate increases.
The contingency on the solid waste, was that,
That's mainly in
why
case
are we
we
using that one, I guess, that was my question there.
because we only have 1 month of costs left. So we're working with Becky, we're able to drill down and get more exact costs for that. That's why. And then the last one I had on there for funds for amendments. This is a very, very good news one. I want to highlight this and stress this. A lot of times we'll budget initially on the conservative end. Try to go conservative. And then if we have different events happen where revenues exceed expectations, such as this case, we're able to amend it. That money is in fund balance. The sales tax fund, for example, we're building a fund balance so we can put it toward, have a substantial contribution to projects like the 76 roundabout project or the H Street truck route. The next agenda item, you'll see that to where we're actually budgeting to put some money towards some projects. That dollar can change through amendments fairly easy, but it's at least have a placeholder and say, here's what we're looking at, here's where our comfort level is. Revenues, we had originally budgeted the city sales tax 300,000. We were pulling in 2018 around 350,000. So we took that previous year's dollar amount. We were on track for doing that, and that's what we did. However, we had a lot more construction activity that happened throughout this year that we didn't have we really couldn't put a dollar amount towards at the time we were doing the 2019 budget. 2019 budget, you're doing that quite a ways out in advance. We pulled in, right now we're on track to be just over $600,000 for this fiscal year for city sales tax. Great news, that helps us tremendously. The biggest influences of that are the construction of middle school, and then the different road projects that we have. Going on. The roundabout 76, those do have tax dollars, or they are taxed, and they come back. They're subject to the sales tax. And then also the increase in building permits. That has helped quite a bit too. This month alone, or last month, November, our sales tax revenue is just over $98,000. So, like I said, that is exciting because it's going to be able to help us put money towards some of these other improvements. It's not going to cover everything in the future, but it helps. It helps shave down costs that we would have that typically would impact residents. So anyways, that is a quick highlight of 2019 budget amendments. This is reflective of all the different budgets that we do have.
So the line item here that transferred to general fund, we had budgeted $75,000 going for the economic development, but does that mean that's actually changed because we're eliminating that transfer?
We eliminated those transfers to keep the activity within that specific fund.
Right. So
before we really didn't have the tracking capabilities or confidence with the capabilities of that. Now we do with Becky and with our finances, and then also with Black Mountain.
But the point is that money is going to get allocated right away instead of going into the sales tax and then get it transferred out.
Yeah,
it's
just less
allocating it properly. The way
it's
should
less shuffling.
Yep.
So we are eliminating some shuffling and creating some.
So, from a budget standpoint, it is a change,
Yes.
but it's just more of an accounting procedure change more than
Yes.
anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this budget amendment in general, just looking at the general fund, is a difference of about approximately $70,000 between our original budget of almost $4 million to almost 1.4.
Yeah.
4.
Because the additional revenues.
Because the additional revenues and that type of thing. So we've spent a little bit more in areas of things that have come up, but we've had revenues to cover that. So in theory, we haven't dipped in our general fund.
We're anticipating to be putting about 50,000 in fund balance in general fund this year. After everything, we're anticipating to be coming in under significantly and under revenues. That's just to give us the most flexibility possible.
Yep. Okay.
That's good news.
But the one thing out of this that you did state that we're going to continue to keep working on is there still needs to be a review and a discussion about sewer, water, vector, and solid waste
Yes.
rates. Correct?
Yes.
So we
And
can
we will be tackling
continue
that.
to make sure everybody's aware that there's
We will be
something
tackling
coming.
that in the very near future. We've
Yes.
identified vector would be 250. In looking at the numbers a little bit more, it would probably be around that 250 to 3 range. Sewer is going to need to go up based on working on 2020 budget. Probably right around that 40 to 50% or more. And then you're looking at water is going to need to go up a bit too. It depends on what we do water source wise. If we go to another water provider, vector, we already talked vector. Solid waste, we're going to need to increase because waste management has a increase every year towards us too. And then we also have to cover our costs for things like compost site and when folks, example also when folks illegally dump, we're picking up the garbage, we gotta take care of it. And so those are different elements that we're looking, or we have to cover. And so,
Okay. Thank you.
yep.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions on that?
So the one question I had was that the economic development, again, on the revenue side, that's just because of the change of the accounting procedure. I'm just
Yes.
looking at the general fund.
The money is still there.
The money's still there, it's being allocated to the economic
If
development.
you look at the city sales tax fund,
Right. I
we
mean, that-
eliminated that transfer of funds. And
Right.
then you look at the general fund, we eliminated that
Yeah,
transfer
so
of
that,
funds.
that's just a
So
reflection
it
of what's
washes
over
out.
here on the sales tax. Okay.
Yeah. It's more of a bookkeeping thing and to keep it cleaner, but there's no change of funds available or anything. It's just that we have a lot more confidence to be able to track it with Black Mountain now. So it's best to keep it separated.
Does Horace have a place to haul and dump snow?
No,
Okay.
not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, otherwise, accept the motion to accept the budget amendment?
I motion that we approve the fiscal year 2019 budget amendment number 1 as presented by Brendan.
Okay.
Second.
Dave's a motion, Brian is a second. I'll roll call this one, guys, just because of the nature of the beast. So Dave,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes, Lucas, go ahead. You had a
Yes, if I can jump back to your liquor question.
beer. Come
Beer.
on. Straight. We're not
So-
the liquor thing yet.
The North Dakota Century Code says the tax commissioner may issue a special event permit for not more than 20 days per calendar year to a microbrew licensee, which allows the licensee to give free samples of beer manufactured by the licensee, sell beer manufactured by the glass or enclosed containers, or dispense beer manufactured by the licensee at a designated trade show, convention, festival, fundraiser, or other related special event hosted by a nonprofit organization unaffiliated with the licensee, or a similar event approved by the tax commissioner. This subsection is subject to local ordinance. So if they are going to do it, they need that license from the tax commissioner, and then they also will need your special event permit.
Yep. So they would need the special event liquor license basically on site for a day, but they would also have to get their thing from tax commissioner, which is what the wine one was doing already.
Correct, but I don't know
Yep.
what the
Yep, the
I mean,
brewery,
if
they
this
would
is
have
a
to get it.
microbrew.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, on to number 13 then.
Okay.
You explained that, haven't you?
Pardon?
Haven't you explained the highway fund and enterprise one?
Yeah, I covered quite a bit of this already, so it will make it easier.
Okay, good.
A summary then, please.
Just because you love budgets so much. I could give you a shorter version of these. This is for the 2020 budget. One thing I want to stress is general fund has already been approved by this group. So we're not talking general fund, we're only talking enterprise funds. This would be your highway fund, water, sewer, street, or highway fund, water, sewer, vector, forestry, and city sales tax and solid waste. So mainly the funds that we're spending most of the time talking about in the previous item. Couple key notes is the highway fund, for example, reflects a $100,000 down payment that was previously approved by council for a new road grader. So that is reflected in there. We are spending down fund balance within the highway fund. So it shows that there'd be a shortage of $150,250. That's mainly to help spend down the highway fund because our balance was where it needed to be spent down. And we have needs to account for. We reduced the general fund transfer from general fund to highway fund for 2020 to also help spend that down, give us the most flexibility within our general fund, because general fund could help out any fund versus highway fund has very limited scope. It also does include the creation of another public works staff member does have that, gives us some flexibility to help out with additional developments, additional roads. We've added over throughout 2020 and even 2019, we've added more roads to our network. We've added more areas to cover, more responsibility. So that would help with that. It would help with snow plowing, or any issues like street patching or work that we could tackle. It help with that quite a bit. The other fund that we're spending fund balance down, to go back on that, I mentioned on the last agenda item, our sales tax. If you look at the very last tab there, Brian, it shows that we put a conservative number in there again. I'm going to stress that, but it's a higher number than last time. $550,000 in for revenue. I do believe with the construction of middle school still going on, and the new high school, and the different developments and road projects, I'd be shocked if we don't meet that number or exceed it. But if you scroll down, what I did put in there is to spend some, the revenues and fund balance down. So we put 1.25 million towards road projects. I'm comfortable with that number. We could potentially go a little higher, but I think we need to see how our revenues come in throughout 2020 to know exactly can we put more towards it. But come, by next summer, we should have a lot more confidence with the numbers of can we increase that. But I'm very comfortable with the 1.25 because we'll have those dollars in there by the time we'd be doing any spending. Examples of projects, like I mentioned before, roundabout 76, we can help shave down the cost towards that. And also we have the 8th Street truck route. Wall Avenue will be coming up very soon as a discussion item and possibly doing construction next year. I'm going to stress possibly. That one we're looking at as a good candidate for prairie dog funds. Put our prairie dog funds towards that project. We might be in a position too where we could put some sales tax money. It's too early to say that one right now.
That was going to be my question. Where do the prairie dog funds show up in this budget? Do they show
They
up here?
They don't show up.
Okay, they show up the other general.
No.
Okay.
We don't know the exact numbers, or it's kind of hard to.
There's
we
a
have
lot
an
of-
idea, but
But I mean, that's what I'm wondering though. The prairie dog funds, would they show up in this budget, or would they show up in the general fund budget?
No, there would be a project. They would be treated almost like likely to be treated almost like the roundabout or a separate construction project
It'd
where
be a project.
they're not budgeted within these different funds. It's its own separate deal.
So there'll basically be a line item in that project that says we've allocated a certain percentage or the dollar amount from that project to funding from prairie dog.
Like when we bond.
Right,
When
we'll
we
just
bond-
reduce that
when we did
bond.
the temporary bonding for the roundabout 76. That money is not seen within these
Right.
funds. It's separate as a project-based fund. So we would probably track it in that means or a different fashion.
Would it be a revenue source on
Yeah.
our financial statement then as a
Well,
somewhere coming from
right. So
somewhere?
that's where I was going.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
not going
yeah.
to see it on any of our budgets.
There's
So
a
how
lot
do
of-
we
there's a lot
report
of-
that we're actually saying, okay, we're allocating these funds and we're using it in X, Y,
There's a
Z
lot
way?
of fluidity, and the state is still working out the details on
Okay.
even project eligibility, how you're going to report to them.
Right.
Would it operate as, okay, you get this much money, or is it a grant based where, okay, we have to draw upon the fund from the state? So there's a lot of question marks that are still being hashed out, so I can't really answer that question.
We just have to have a mechanism for
Yeah.
us to be able to report that to residents as well.
Yeah.
So they know that here's how the funds are being allocated. So that the goal is to try and reduce the amount that we have to special assess.
And the last
Right,
I've heard
that's the goal.
is by end of the biennium, because we wouldn't get the money until the end of the biennium, so towards the end of 2021, we'd have, or every biennium we'd be getting about $1 million.
Right.
So that was the other thing is that they've allocated this money, but they won't give it to
They
the
won't
cities
give it until the biennium is
very
done.
end of the biennium.
You have to request it too.
Yeah.
You have to request it, and it has to meet their 10 project criteria.
They have been,
Legislature
So the state
established.
is rolling in cash. The legislature has approved the city's getting a given allocation of dollars to be used towards infrastructure projects, but we have to outlay the money which means we will have to temporary bond, incur interest for the state to give us that money. Did I state that wrong, or did I state that differently?
No, you'll get the money, you just have
I
to
know, but
request it. You don't
we-
have to upfront it. They don't
Yeah.
want
But
it
you're
to be
stating
used
we're not
for
going to
debt
get the money
service.
until the end of
We
the
may not
biennium.
have the money, we may have to temp bond it. We might have to, depending on the timing.
Right, depending on their
There's
timing.
a lot of question marks. There's also the discussion of do they make some of the money, half the money available through halfway through, or just all at the end? So
It's
there's
all in
So
the
when is their
revenue.
timing on, this is something that came out of the last legislative session, and we already, am I wrong, are we already in the next biennium
Yep.
now?
Yeah.
We're already
So we
a quarter
have,
through.
we don't have bills finalized and processes finalized yet by then?
No, they just get the bill, they get the concept, then they work out all the rules, everything after.
Do they have a timeline they have to do that by?
I have not heard a time.
I haven't either. I know that about every state agency is having their attorneys look into what can be done with the
Yeah.
money. And try to make sure it's all laid out.
A lot of times they.
It's in a way that the revenue is generated and how the quote buckets fill up to when it gets dispersed. So indications at the League of Cities and at the Main Street Initiative where they're going to fill up quicker than anyone thought. So could be earlier, could be later, but it does have to come from one of those 10 project categories.
Plus, we're not told based on size or anything yet how much money we're getting. It's a estimate.
We're told an estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a
So
pretty.
how can we?
The estimate is
This
pretty.
is really frustrating how we can budget them. You're going to kind of get this amount of money, so if I go over accidentally because you kind of gave me a number, but you gave me something less, then I got to go find the money for it.
Right.
So now we're all going to be very conservative on what we do, and then if we get a bunch of money,
That's
we'll
why
have
our
that.
that's why our dollar amount is just over $1 million. It's like 1,050,000 is what the estimate shows. So I'm telling you, plan on $1 million. It's $1 million. The formulas show it would be just over $1 million, so we plan on $1 million, and then if we get extra, great. That helps us out.
Okay.
So
Well, and it's probably more frustrating for other cities that, like, we have all these projects that we kind of have to do. But there's
Understandable.
other cities that would probably like to know,
yeah. And some cities are going to be facing where they may have to let this build
Yes.
for a couple bienniums before they can even do anything.
No, you can't because you know what the state's going to do. The state's going to turn around and go, no, you have to spend it within the next biennium.
They
You know there's
say
going to
they're
be
not-
rules.
They
that are-
claim they're not.
That's
going
a
to.
bunch
say
of-
they're not.
They say.
Because they understand
They're forking
that
out cash. They're going to make us spend it.
You're fortunate where you're getting.
I know we're very
compared to
beneficial
a lot
on
of
it,
the
but
smaller
it's just all of
communities.
these. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Chelsea saying.
10,000, 12,000, 15,000, and you can't do a lot
Right.
for 15,000. You can do some, but 30,000 you can do a lot more.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so highlight. That's all right.
Trying to keep tabs on it is as frustrating. to me.
Yes, I can
Yes.
understand.
What these do reflect, like I said, is they do reflect, and they are based heavily upon. You're going to have some rate increases. Like I said, we'll be discussing rates very, very soon. But we've been stressing that over and over. We're going to be going over rates. We're starting to talk more specific dollars. These budgets are reflective of we're going to have some rate increases. Not getting into the weeds so much into like water. We had a rate study done, and their recommendations show that our rates would have to just skyrocket. We know we can't do that, and they recognize. The consultant that did that recognizes we can't skyrocket the rates so much that nobody could do anything. And that's keeping that in mind too within these budgets. So what you do see is that's just a cursory overview, short highlights of the 2020 budget. If you have any questions, I can answer any questions that you have.
So out of these budgets, I guess the one that you know the most specifically is truly the solid waste. We have very good numbers on our efficiency.
Well, we know how much we're being charged and how
And
much
we
we're,
know the
their rate,
composting and
they've already
off-the-
told us what their rate increase is going to be, so that one's pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
Right, the
Okay.
only factor that plays into that is the compost and the recovery of some of the costs related to having, providing that as a service
And
for
our
residents.
and our
So,
cleanup.
solid waste, what I have reflected there is a rate of $23. Right now we're at $21.50.
Okay.
You're going to need to fall within that between $23 and $24 for a rate in order to be able to cover activities. If you want to expand upon the compost area or not, if we want to do any, elaborate on the programs or anything like that, but just to stay afloat, you're gonna need to be at 23. The most confidence, honestly, just because they're so simple, it's the vector and forestry. Those are pretty much the most straightforward budgets that we have, and the sales tax one. Water, sewer, highway, there's some fluidity within those budgets, so.
Any other questions, guys?
Do we have a feeling of what type of timeline we want to really discuss these rates yet, or so we can make sure we kind of get on a track to make sure we're ready to buy?
If you want to talk about them at the next meeting, or I'd say it's come January, if you want to do it the first meeting in January, that'd probably be the best time.
There's a couple variables that need to play into this before, because we have to basically come to a decision on what we're gonna do with our water supply issue for the upcoming year, because then that plays into the rate, you know, our overall costs of delivering, right? So, I mean, there's a couple conversations that need to happen before we can actually talk about the rates.
What I would suggest is the month of January we start getting into the weeds.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion to you. Is January.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Pick out the easy ones first.
Yep. Well, honestly, like forestry and vector, even solid waste are going to be fairly easy. The ones that you're going to spend the most time, most contentious, are going to be your water and sewer.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, Brent, do you want us to do anything action-wise with 13?
Yes, we need approval of the 2020 budget items. If you're comfortable with
but
it.
the problem is that you're predicating a lot of this on rate increases. So how can we approve the budget amounts without having an idea of what the rate should be?
That's what I'm worried.
It's a chicken and egg. You're basically putting the budget before we know what the rates are going to be to support the budget amount.
Yep.
So
It's your call if you want to table it for another meeting, then we could talk rates the next meeting, but then you're going to have to figure out the rates.
I don't feel comfortable.
So
I don't feel comfortable going forward and approving the
Well,
budget until we get a better handle on understanding what the rates need to be. But
Can we take care of the easy one? Like, is there anything to do with the sales tax fund?
I'm just thinking, guys, we should probably table this and have a little more further discussion about it.
I think we need to talk
For now.
about it some more.
This isn't anything that's absolutely paramount
Right.
at this meeting.
you would need your budgets come January.
Understood, but we don't, tonight, we're not in a
Yep.
position right now.
Right.
Yep.
So, let's table that till the next meeting. Okay, let's move on to 14 then. Jim, you got that one.
I do. 1 second. My notes on the page here. So, Southdale Farms First Edition. This is the New Horizon Homes edition north of 76th Avenue, east of County Road 17. If you scroll to the last page, Brian, there is a location map. So that is, the location is that the left bound is County Road 17, the south bound is 76th Avenue. This is a residential subdivision being proposed. We have seen the plat for this. It will consist of 126 single-family residences, 90 twin homes, parkland, the stormwater detention ponds. The developer is proposing municipal city sewer, Casper water, storm sewer, curb and gutters, underground piping, and retention. Street lighting. If you go to the last page, Brian, we have a district map. There's going to be some regional components and some localized improvements. In the blue is the subdivision itself. That's the water, the sewer, the streets, and all that. And then in the red is a regional lift station. Right now, Horace has got a large amount of lift stations per capita. So we're trying to look at these when these subdivisions come along as what is the best place to put them to service the most area, so we don't end up with multiple lift stations in a section. Typically, you can service a section with one lift station. So that's where that boundary for phase 2, which would be the regional improvements, would come from. The intent for this would be to have a lift station that pumps into the force main to Fargo, into the SSL. So, project cost total project cost is a little over $5 million. Phase 1 being the infrastructure to Southdale Farms itself, which is about 4.66. And then the regional components, which would be the lift station and the looping of the water main, would be a little under $550,000. So, the developer, has requested that this project keep going forward so that they can bid it early this spring.
They've seen these numbers as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They were not surprised, concerned.
No, they didn't really show a lot of.
Okay.
So the intention is that this puts a lot of the infrastructure, you're essentially designing for providing this sanitary for this whole area,
and the
sizing the lift station
Yep.
and everything to service this whole area.
Yep.
But the cost of actually putting the service in this outside area would be in a future.
We would do it
phase.
as part of the overall. As part of this project, we would assess those property, or we could assess those properties for the regional sewer and water, because as part of the closest water main right now is down on 76th Avenue,
Right here.
right south of Russ's, and then over towards the Green 27 there, 63rd Street.
Yeah, right here.
So
Because it goes south from here.
Yep, and
It
that
goes
this-
south and then over to the street.
Yep, and the new developments will be expanding the water distribution system from that new water tower.
So this is the Castle Water is supplying water to
Yes.
this whole area, which is not a surprise.
Yes, and with this being the tower, lower pressure water system, we have to install that whole infrastructure system. So
Because these homes are already on Castle Water.
They are, but
they
they're
have
on
to
the-
change.
no,
To get on-
so they're set up right now to be on the pressure system, which is what Casperell is right now. They're switching over to a more municipal system with lower pressures based on the tower.
Okay.
And that's what they're expanding. Now, those will probably get changed over sometime, but
Not
not right now.
Okay.
The tower is mostly being built and going to be used for newer
Yes.
developments out of the gate.
Yes.
Until a point where Casserole Water decides there's a benefit to switch, whether it's
'Cause
Russ's area or on Sunnyside
Sunnyside or Brinks, any
or
one of
Brinks
those,
or
yeah.
us or whoever on the
There's two sides to the water tower. There's a high pressure side and a low pressure side. So it'll service their system both ways, but it's just a way of they're distributing it through more of a typical municipal system. So
Okay.
this would be, like I said, urban curb and gutter, sanitary sewer and water. So if you look at that district boundary, that would probably be the first thing we need to do is resolution creating that. We'll let Lucas take over. He hasn't been able to do a lot.
Nobody lets me talk anymore. So, so if I could just talk for a little bit.
Are you taking a hint here, or what's the deal?
Need to earn my paycheck today. So the first one we'll do is a resolution creating the district. And I'm going to throw in a wrench already for consistency purposes. Let's call it Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District number 2020-1. And that's just consistency with what you've been naming your previous developments.
That's what it says on my sheet here too.
Yeah.
My report does not say that.
The agenda says something different.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sanitary water storm.
Yeah, so this one's called Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District 2020-1. It's all in there. It's just like I said, for consistency purposes.
Yes, he's changing things.
He's just trying to talk.
And then the boundary that you'll adopt, I would recommend the red, because that will encompass the regional and the local.
But that's for this. Okay. Gotcha.
It encompasses both, but we choose what we want to.
Yeah, you want your district boundary to be larger, and then worry
Right.
about what's going to be assessed later.
Well,
on.
so you're not talking this graphic. You're talking about this graphic.
Yes. Yep.
And showing the entire area.
Correct.
Because there's going to, because these areas are going to receive the benefit in the future for the sanitary
Of the
specifically,
regional
and the
components.
And the, other regional components for the stormwater and the sanitary.
So when Jim and I go through assessments, we'll look at the map, how it looks now, as far as the local improvements and then the regional improvements. But for the city council purposes of creating this improvement district, we want a larger boundary
Right.
because we can't go bigger after that. Right.
Yep.
Okay, so this will be an additional item under 14, then, right? Creating a district boundary, an
There,
improvement boundary?
there's potentially going to be quite a few additions into that, but
All right.
part of the process. It's all those resolutions that you guys love so much.
Do you want to start with that, or do you want to start with the A and B, and we'll just start adding in the C's?
We want the district created first before we're doing some of this other stuff.
Okay, fine.
So I'll make a motion to approve the creation of make a motion to create the resolution. I'm not saying it right.
Resolution creating the district.
Yes, creating the district for 2020-1. Correct?
Yep. And then adopting the red
Adopting
boundary.
the larger boundary bounded by 64th and 76, County 17 and 50. I just can't see what street that
That's
is.
not really an
Okay.
avenue. So just say it's 64th is the far north one.
Okay, 64th Avenue to 76th.
And then the east is the city limits.
Oh, that's the city limits, from the city limits to County
Yeah,
17.
that line that jogs through there is drain 27.
Right, so this is the boundary of our city limits, okay.
The County 17.
Okay, so Brian makes a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Chelsea does a second, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that has been passed. Next then, Lucas?
So the
Your procedural things here?
you can't talk.
I used up all I had.
He's emotional
So
about
the
it.
next one is the resolution directing engineer to prepare the report.
Technically, this was done 2 weeks ago, technically.
Well, yeah, so isn't that, but I thought we already did that.
You did 2 weeks ago.
Okay, then we don't need that one.
Actually, it was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, because I
was gonna
thought
say,
we did that
You
resolution.
don't like to do that at the same time as getting a
That's
report.
why you have a report in front of you.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, so you can discuss your report.
I just did.
Okay, then we can adopt the report.
I motion
Resolution
that
to
motion.
approve the report.
Motion to a resolution to approve the preliminary engineering report.
second.
Dave makes a motion, Brian is a second. All-
District 2020-01.
Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
So then the last one I have is a resolution directing engineer to prepare plans and specs.
So with that resolution, you do have an agreement that we can go over. It's the next item on there. It's our standard engineering agreement. It's based on the percentage of the construction cost with a not to exceed. So if you go to the last page, there's a summary sheet. Attachment number 1 is the summary sheet. A lot of verbiage.
This is all standard.
Yes, it is. Right there is our, so we have the not to exceed 5,000 for the engineering report. Design services are, what did I put on that one? 299.
$299.
Yep. And then that is a percentage based on electrical engineering as a subcontractor, that should be 10,000. Right of way easement, we don't anticipate any of that, so that's why it's not really not to exceed, but there might be some stuff where we have to clean up the boundaries or check on some of what they provided us. And then we have the construction engineering in there that is an hourly not to exceed 442-100 based on what we've done in the past, so.
So the your engineering report that said 5.2 million or whatever does not include this, correct? These dollars? It does include that, or okay? So this 442 is just the agreement, but that's included in that 5.2. What do we put on top? Do we put contingencies of how much?
We put 10% typically.
10%.
For the engineering side.
Nope, just for, so when I go through and do an estimate, I run through it all, and on top, so I have an opinion of a probable bid cost. And I add 10% on top of that for contingencies to get us our opinion of probable construction cost.
Yep.
On top of that, we do 20% for the engineering, legal, and admin, all that, which
Yep.
gets us to our total project cost, and that's the bottom number that I give you in the report there.
Okay.
So that's
that-
all identified.
That's all in there.
Yep.
Okay, so none of this is above and beyond. It's just
Nope,
we
it's
need
all
to
factored
agree upon
into,
the agreement.
it's all factored into
Ten
this.
percent
Thank you.
contingency built in there, yeah.
So there, yeah.
I didn't see that as a quick.
Okay, so we're on to,
No, we got it. I motion that we approve this engineering services agreement for 2020-01.
Second.
okay, Dave makes a motion, Chris is a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries.
Okay.
Next one.
So now you can do your resolution directing the engineer to prepare plans and specs.
So move.
Second.
Okay, so Brian does a motion, Dave does a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next one.
That's it.
All right, the next one. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund
We finished
loan
14. That was quick.
is a program that provides funding for clean water, which is the wastewater side of it. It's a 2% loan, 1.5% interest rate with a 0.5% administrative fee on top of that. Have used it for 3 projects: the SSL, the Fargo, the lining project that we did throughout the city proper, and then with the water meters, that was the other SRF project. So
You
every
wanna
year,
keep using it.
so every year they solicit projects for inclusion on their intended use plan, and we've got projects on there in the past, and the list is getting pretty lengthy right now. So I just wanted to go through the projects that we have, and that I'm going to be submitting on your behalf here. They're due end of next week, so put them before you, and you can, just so you have an idea of what we're thinking of for the wastewater side. But there aren't any attachments, just because it's,
Okay.
it's just basically, I'm just gonna run through
Just
the
a
list.
discussion.
So, the first project we have is the sanitary sewer around Horseshoe Bend. Horseshoe Bend has a private lagoon. The private lagoon discharged earlier this year. It can't. It's
Everybody was so happy about
not
that.
permitted. It's not a permitted lagoon. It cannot discharge. So they have requested, the owners of Horseshoe Bend have requested that the city provide them with infrastructure through that. So we are in the process of doing that, but in order to keep our spot for SRF funding, we have to re-up for it. So that's that one. I'd like to also have some discussions with Riverdale this fall to see if, since we're doing Horseshoe, if it makes sense to try to get some of Horseshoe or Riverdale in on this system too, because I'm sure they've got some aging septics up there. We talked to them probably a year
2 years now.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it's been that long.
So anyways, that's the first project that we'll be putting in for. The second one that I've got is connection to West Fargo with a sanitary sewer connection to West Fargo. We have talked about this for a while as a way to take care of Greyhawk and Ponderosa and anything that would come up in that part of the world that's on an island.
That's one
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So Enos live on County Road 17, north of the river, south of 52nd Avenue, on kind of an island when it comes to any type of city infrastructure. So we've not gotten a firm no that West Fargo can handle it, but we need to do some more thinking and exploring in that area. Is your septic kind of
Yeah, we have to do something this spring, next spring.
So
This is all, yeah, we couldn't even empty it out to the, they said if they did it, we'll just call it. Anyway, we need to do something next spring.
So there's getting
And
to
our
be
neighbors
more.
all wanna hook up. and
They do?
everything
Okay.
here.
So there's getting to be more and more residents leaning towards the municipal sewer now. I've gotten more phone calls of people whose septics are on the verge, and that's expensive to replace a septic, especially if there's gonna be a municipal system coming along. So this one keeps that in the funding queue for available funds. Now I've got another one that is our extension from the lagoons to 45th Street. That one will be the big line that that will lead to the decommissioning of the lagoons. And this is probably, I think this is the first year that I've included that one, and knowing that we've got some diversion money plus some other stuff going on, getting this on the list is important. It doesn't have to be, this doesn't commit you to anything. It's just getting you on a list so the funds are available should you want to go forward with this project. So that's that one. 100th Avenue. This is another one, Country Acres of Maple Lakes. There's going to be some talking of people out there that want sanitary sewer or municipal systems. So this is getting that 100th corridor. So when we first started talking about municipal sewer to Fargo, the trunk lines are going to be 100th, 88th, 76th, and 64th to 45th Street. That was going to be the main ways. So this is the 100th Avenue portion of that. Okay. And this one, we've done some improvements with the construction of the Vista Industrial Edition, so we can get this lift station and force main. We only have to take it to Vistos, and then it can go through the system and into the lagoon versus having to bring it all the way to the lagoon. So trying to think ahead on some of this stuff and plan so we're not having miles of piping that's unnecessary.
Exactly.
This is 76th Avenue, same thing. This is another one of those trunk lines along 76th Avenue. Last year, about this time, somebody had come forth to the city asking about potential for developing closer to the diversion on 76th Avenue. Same thing with Maple. Maple's along there, Dreamfields, Sleepy Shadow Lane is another one. So that's the 76 portion of it. And then
Would
the
that-
last
would
one.
you take an approach of going under the river, or would that be kind
That
of
one
go
would
to
be
the West Fargo?
Either or.
Okay.
Probably under because we've
I'm
got
guessing it's under.
we've got a little bit more system capability this way than we do that way through the Horace network.
Because then you could potentially in the future pick up Sunnyside and some of those other ones.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last one we have here is visiting with Public Works and kind of putting together a wish list. Sewer manhole rehabilitation. There are some manholes, Chestnut, Roods Edition, where there's a lot of infiltration, a lot of groundwater seeping in. And this is a project that would rehab approximately 78 manholes, cleaning, patching, and eliminating infiltration, lining those manholes, repairing the inverts so the flow line in the bottom, sometimes those get eaten up by sewer gas or whatever. This repairs that, and then replacing some castings on that. So that would be the last one on we're intending to put on intended use plan. So the other thing that goes along with this is we are going to have Brian and Corey and Brent and myself. We're going to have a CIP meeting probably by the end of this week to discuss the fall and winter. Well, I guess the winter now, going forward with these projects on a larger scale, identifying the funding, the feasibility, and all that type of stuff.
So you're just essentially putting together the application that will go to the SRF.
Yep.
And just keeping them on the list
Yep.
at least because I mean, in the past, we got one, right? We got
Three.
we've got 3 now.
3, we've got the SSL, the lining of the Horace proper,
Okay.
and the lift station improvements, and we did the water meters, I'm sorry. And we did the water main through the drinking water side.
Yes.
We did the water mains on wall. So it's a program that we've used in the past. And so, like I said, it's
What
half
about our
the rate.
potential need for a larger water tower? Is that something that should be thought about putting on?
That was
the list?
already put in through the drinking water. This is the clean
Okay.
water, so this is the sewer side of it.
Okay, so
we
there is
did,
we did that on the opposite
we
side.
did that one was due some time ago. We did
Okay.
that, yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's factored into it. So
Separate funds, but
Well,
yeah, it's all good.
That's what I was reading through. I'm trying to
Yep.
make sure.
yep, these are all on the
That's a
wastewater,
long, that's a
the
long
wastewater
list.
side.
Even though it says clean water,
So-
so you're-
It's the way they
though-
interpret it. It's the way
even
they-
though we get, well, even if we're approved with some of these, it's unlikely that all of them will be approved.
I think the money's there. From what I've heard from the state, is the money's there if
It's
you
just
want to
when we
access
pull the
it,
pin on it, I think is what it comes
because
down
you're going to be responsible for a portion of it. Obviously, it's not a grant; it's a loan.
But I
it's
mean,
a
I'm
low
thinking
interest
like the
loan.
Horseshoe Bend, right? I mean, that
Horseshoe's
could be
gonna
one
have
that we
to.
say, if that gets approved, we gotta execute it when we wanna execute it on it as soon as
Yes.
possible.
And that one,
That one we're gonna have.
That's not a want, that's a need.
I've had discussions with the Department of Environmental Quality, the water quality side, which is the one that investigated the discharge, and the SRF side, and
Right.
said, we can talk, right?
Right.
So, I know Brenton and Becky are working on getting the city in better standings with the SRF, and I think that'll come a long way this year. I assume, won't you think so, Brendan?
I think so, yeah.
by us, by the council approving the debt service reserve fund, that helps. For example, that was one of our holdups.
Yep.
So that was a lot of information there, but I think it was
that's
six,
good.
So let me ask you
projects. So
one thing. Do you remember we talked about the gate valves and we haven't done anything with it yet?
it's on my.
Is that worth putting in something?
That's one of the DWs
On the other side, right?
And that one
Okay.
was put in with the drinking water side. Yeah.
I knew we talked about it, I just couldn't remember
Yep.
where we.
And I've got that on my list for discussion this week too at our
Okay,
meeting.
fair
So,
enough.
Yeah, that's what I had on those items, just to get them before you get them signed. I'll get them in. They're due next Friday, but I'll get them signed tonight and get them.
So
signed
next
in.
Friday's when they're due.
Yeah, they'll be in this week. I'll get Corey signed it and we'll submit.
Okay, good.
That's good. Will be a good list.
Okay, anything else then on that, Jim?
Not on that.
Perfect. All right, so Brent, you got the next one here.
Oh, you have your project update.
You have. I have a different.
It says resolution of good standing.
Yeah.
Oh, resolution consent. Okay, sorry. Jumping items already. In talking with Lucas on this item, we talked last council meeting about putting together a resolution identifying this, and felt it would be more appropriate as a policy for the city. So if you would like to have this as a policy of the city, which was received fairly well by council at our last meeting, what it is basically stating that in order for anyone, an applicant, to be able to get a building permit of any nature or any permit of any nature from the city, they must be in good standing with any debt obligations to the city at that time. So if they have an outstanding water bill as 2 months delinquent, they have to pay their water bill on top of paying their permit fee in order to be able to get that permit. We felt it was pretty straightforward, cut and dry. But like I said, talking to Lucas more about this, thought it would be best as a policy, and we would come forward to the council with other policies in the future. The thing, it might be something to do a review of policies in the future, because we don't have a whole lot of policies with the city. So this one would be a policy, like I said, stating if applicant requests a permit of any nature from the city, they must be in good standing in any debt obligations to the city. That's the simplified of it.
I mean, we don't need that. Another option would be to make an ordinance change, but it'd be easier to adjust this.
It'd be simpler as a policy.
Right, absolutely. I mean,
Ordinance, you're getting into very lengthy.
right.
So what do you need done here tonight?
Basically, if the council is supportive of having a policy, it'd be take action to approve that policy to be enforced, or to approve that policy.
Hang on a second. Lucas, so what was the reason for not having it as a resolution, just a policy?
Just doesn't make sense as a resolution. Resolution is basically what you're doing to enforce a policy.
Okay.
Basically like a motion. That's what your resolution is. The resolution just has more meat to it, explaining why you're doing it.
Okay.
This policy is just in place, so he has it on file, and so staff can use it to it and just look to see, okay,
So it's just-
what are some of the
it's a
city policies
direction.
that we
It's a
have?
directional thing then, just
Yep.
so that they could, okay, all right. Just want to make sure there's a clarification
Yep.
here so that everybody understands what's going on. Okay.
So I motion we institute a policy of good standing with the city for permits. Is that enough?
And really, it's just good business practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
more or
it's
less.
just a duh, it's more of a
Yeah.
duh here, but we put it in paper. Okay, so
The,
Dave makes a
the
motion.
unfortunate thing is we've ran across situations recently
Unfortunately, yes.
to where this would be good to have an actual stance from the council saying,
Right.
yep, here's your stance.
Okay, so Dave made a motion, Chelsea does a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Easy, moving.
There we go.
Resolution passed, or, no, policy passed, okay. Jim, you're up on 17.
All right. The first thing I got for tonight is Mike Furchess. He's a new hire to our company. He's going to be one of the leaders